Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, distinguished guests, and folks of all stripes, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston Astros podcast for diehard Houston Astros fans from a diehard Houston Astros fan. I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Astros fan podcaster. I'm an actor, writer, Los Angeles bartender, and multi-hyphenate. Of course, I'm a Houston native and I have the receipts to prove it. I went to a basketball game at the Summit. And yes, a Houston Rockets basketball game. We're not talking about some whack church rec league. I've spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer here in Los Angeles, and now I'm podcasting. Welcome to said podcast. This is the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, which was born out of my Substack, the Space Cadet Sports Blog. This is what my brother lovingly calls the Paul Broadpod Ball Blog. I started Space Cadet Sports because I kind of, wanted to find a blog or a podcast that kind of had the refreshing perspective of actually being fans of the Houston Astros, and they were willing to actually talk about the Astros in a critical way, but not in a way that's just super reactive and a casual fan clickbait type thing, but also not the just hate-filled Astros hating type media that comes out too. So this is me trying to make a podcast that a diehard H-Towner like me would like. Keyword on try though. We're here recording in Los Angeles here at the podcast. I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, as I always am, the Roz to my Frasier. Carla the dog is here. She may get on mic from time to time. Y'all know that. If anyone here is going to have a hot take, it's probably her. I do get passionate from time to time, but I try to be that cool glass of water for you when times can be emotional as a sports fan. Let's kind of get to it. There's kind of a lot to talk to in this podcast. So let's just kind of jump right on in here. We're going to recap the Phillies series right now, which was a tough one, folks. In the first game, the Astros lost 2-3 on a walk-off, and the bad vibes just kind of started there and seeped into this series. Ronel Blanco started this game. He looked pretty good. But still is pitching generally a lot of pitches, even for Ronel Blanco, first time through the lineup. For those of you who are like me, I kind of, while I am a fan of the Houston Astros and I don't, try to be some kind of baseball expert on this podcast, I try not to be something I'm not. I do watch every game. I do watch every pitch, every at-bat of the Houston Astros. I've done it so far. I mean, I do it just to begin with, but this season I do it. I do it for y'all. I do it for the podcast. I kind of make sure that I watch the game before I come on. If you're like me and you've watched all of these games, you've been paying very close attention to these Houston Astros, you'll know that Ronel Blanco has the first time through the lineup is kind of his toughest go through, and then he gets tougher as the game goes on. That's kind of been the recipe for Houston Astros starting pitching this season. But as of late, that first time through the lineup has costed Ronel Blanco more and more pitches, getting that pitch count pretty high. We definitely chalk that up to how tired he is. He's definitely pitching a lot more than we were probably expecting him to this season. You were probably expecting other arms to come back a little bit. You weren't expecting Ronel Blanco to have this incredible season that he's had. So even for Ronel Blanco, I think even for the club, they would admit that they were not thinking that the inning count would be this high for Ronel Blanco this season. We're happy it is because it means he's been pitching incredible. However, we're trying to make sure that Ronel Blanco can finish the year pretty strong and hopefully can be ready and available for a playoff push from this 30-year-old right-hand pitcher. Espada has been hesitant to let him go deep into games because they are trying to keep him fresh. Obviously, he's getting pulled generally at the first sign of trouble. We don't hate it here at the podcast. Carla and I are okay with that. We want to protect games. We want to win some games, and we want to protect our pitcher unless there is a dominant performance that he's having we would want to have him in that game for some kind of statistical reason. First sign of trouble, I get it. We want to kind of get him out of the game. And even for a statistical type game, he's had a no-hitter this season. It would have to be an incredible run for me to let him stay in when he is showing signs of struggle and weakness when we're hoping to have his arm for the rest of the season. So, Espada kind of got him out of the game not early, but you just would hope that with a 6-man rotation that these starters would be able to get to 6 innings. So Blanco came out before 6 innings, going 5 2/3 innings pitched, giving up 6 hits, 2 runs, 2 of them earned runs, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, and a home run. So the walks were pretty low, but so were the strikeouts, obviously giving up a lot of contact in this game. Trying to see where I left off in these notes here. Hector Neris came in after Ronald Blanco. We should just start off there. Just keep going chronologically in this game for pitching. Hector Neris came in to close out the 6th inning there. Welcome back to the team, Hector. He definitely got out of the jam there. He picked up a strikeout, finished off that inning. He just seems like he's picking up exactly where he left off. Caleb Ort then came into the game for 2/3 of an inning, and he hit 100. He definitely had a little bit of a struggle out there getting lifted out after giving up a hit and only picking up a strikeout. But he definitely, hit 100 on the radar gun there. So Caleb Ort, back from paternity leave, showing that dad strength, going out there and reaching back and throwing some hot heat. You love to see it. Caleb Ort has been really good for the Houston Astros since he's been with the team. Big Shady out there throwing the heat. It's a good thing to see. Caleb Ort was lifted for King, who was brought in for Bryce Harper. Rookie lefty Brian King coming in. Joe Espada must trust this man with his life. I mean, this is a rookie lefty that you bring in. Obviously, we've talked in this podcast how much despite his outings where he has not given up runs, Caleb Ferguson does make me nervous at times. So I do understand if I'm Espada, I'm looking to bring a left-handed pitcher in for Bryce Harper. I probably would choose King over Caleb Ferguson as well. I'm just thinking, my goodness, the amount of trust into the rookie is fantastic. Ort's been great. For a minute, I was like, why not just leave in Ort? But obviously, Espada and the Astros know a lot more than I do. King came in and battled Harper, I should say, and walked him. It was really close. King throws a lot of strikes, so to see him nibbling the zone because it's Bryce Harper is totally understandable. Bryce Harper just has a really good eye, worked the count very well and picked up the walk. I really was not mad about that outing by King there. Then King battled Alex Baum and just kept feeding him strikes. Fastball after fastball in the zone until he got a strikeout. And Blummer and TK mentioned how he has no cambio. There's no off speed for rookie Brian King. So he just kind of kept throwing him fastballs there, but eventually did get him out, getting out of that 1/3 of an inning with just one walk to Bryce Harper and a strikeout of Alex Baum. Then in the next inning there, in the 8th, Abreu came in. He got his inning with a clean slate there, just going the whole inning with just a strikeout. And then Hader came in and picked up the loss. But we'll kind of go from there as we go, talk about the end of the game with Hader in a bit. Moving over to the offense a bit, Zach Wheeler started this game. The Astros battled, but it just wasn't enough. They got Wheeler to pitch 97 pitches in 6 innings. They really battled here without Altuve in the starting lineup. Bregman went 2 for 5. Jordan went 1 for 4 with a walk. Caratini was 1 for 3 with a run and a walk. And Shea Whitcomb picked up a big hit in the game, going 1 for 4, knocking in 2 RBIs. Overall, the team got 8 hits, 2 RBIs from Shea Whitcomb, worked 3 walks, and picked up 8 strikeouts. That double in the fourth from Whitcomb to bring 2 in, put the Astros up 2-0. But then Brandon Marsh homered in the 5th against Blanco and tied the game. And the game got tied up in the 6th. Harper walks it off in extra innings to right field to win the game. Hader, people keep talking about bringing Hader in for non-save situations. And I understand to some extent how that argument is made. You look at the stats, you look at what Hader does in a save situation, you look at his stats in a non-save situation, and there is a stark contrast there. And I do understand there is something to be said. There's no arguing that Hader does better in a save situation. That could just be the situation, his pitch, his pitches and the way he sequences. It could just be a head thing. I really don't know exactly what it is, but I do know that I can't say that it is not a thing. However, at the same time, I don't hate the idea of bringing in your best pitcher to pitch the 9th inning. That's what a closer does, whether you're behind, whether you are tied. If you're trying to win the game, you bring in your best pitcher. Josh Hader picked up the loss today. It's his 7th loss of this in that game. It was the 7th loss of the season. He had 1 hit, 1 run, walked a batter, picked up 3 strikeouts. He went for the stretch. He pitched, he was trying to go 2 innings there, pitching the 9th and going in the 10th, and he lost the game in the 10th. And it's a tough one because it is his loss statistically. He was the pitcher on the mound, but the Astros, you just wish they had a little bit more offense. You just wish they would have had one less mistake. To put it all on Hader, to put the loss on him isn't exactly fair, but that is how the cookie crumbles. That is how it looks. I do not think that we are in a position where, we have, maybe if Presley comes back and Presley starts to look like dominant Presley again, then it's a situation where in the 9th and we're tied or we're 9th and behind. Of course, you put in Presley. But in the moment, in a baseball game, when you're managing a baseball game, you generally want to go for your best pitcher in the situation, despite who's up or who's down. If you're trying to win a game, you go for your best pitcher. And the reason being is think about the playoffs, guys. Think about the playoff folks. Like when the playoffs come around, there's going to be all types of situations that happen. And sometimes you're behind. Sometimes you're tied. Sometimes you need to force the game to go to extras. It isn't a time where you want to have to handhold the best pitcher in your bullpen and be like, this is not the situation we normally bring him in for. Josh Hader has made his money. He's got his big contract. He is not putting stipulations on what type of situations the Astros bring him into. So if that's the case, you bring Josh Hader in when the game is on the line and when it is most important in late innings. I don't think that, at least with this current bullpen, the way it looks, I think you put Hader in the 9th. That situation if I'm Espada. But maybe that's just me. Obviously, the Astros struggled in this game. They were 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. They left 8 on base, and errors were astounding. We had 2. Pena picked up another error. Blanco had a fielding error. But it just, the little mistakes, the little errors, the just going so poorly with runners in scoring position, just, little pitching mistakes, just one pitch here, one pitch there. This was a winnable game, and it was tough to see the Astros get walked off. Going into game 2, the bad vibes continued. This one was a heartbreaker, just as bad as the walk-off was heartbreaking, but this one just felt demoralizing. The Astros lost 5-0 and got shut out, and somehow the vibes just kept getting worse. You thought they couldn't get worse from the end of the game. In game 1, JV just gets eaten up by Philly, and once again, the Astros provide no run support for Justin Verlander. You got to give Nola his props. it was a tough game for the Astros, but Phillies pitching between Wheeler and Nola in the first two games were absolutely stout. They really gave the Astros fits. It was another bad vibe after that walk-off loss. Verlander got 5 innings pitched, 7 hits, 4 runs, 4 earned runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, and 1 home run. Not a vintage Verlander, and also a very rough outing. I think a lot of people they're saying immediately, because it's reactionary. We're just living in a reactionary world. People are saying Verlander's cooked. We spent the whole last couple months talking about how we couldn't wait for Verlander to come back. He had a good start to his first game. He struggles a bit in his second against one of the best offensive teams in the National League, which if you look at American League offenses versus National League offenses, the National League is full of amazing offenses. So, JV goes up there against the other league, against an amazing offense, and has a tough outing, and people are ready to bury him like he's 81 instead of 41. Like JV just had a tough game. He is not vintage Verlander, that's for sure. I mean, Father Time is undefeated. He's definitely not the same guy, but he's still a wily and crafty pitcher. He still has great stuff. He just got beat up. Verlander gives great interviews, so if you can, go check out that interview he gave after the game. He's pretty honest. He was talking about the pitch selection. This is a Verlander quote here. Quote, "The selection bothers me. I kind of went away from my instincts there. First pitch, I just threw him a heater that my instincts said he wasn't on, and I probably could have gone back to it, and should have gone back to it, and didn't. That's the game of baseball. That's the chess match." Nick Castellanos' homer cost the Astros 3 runs and was a pivotal point for the game, especially for JV there. So that big home run that really kind of was a big nail in the coffin for the game, and especially momentum-wise going back, seeing that the Astros never really responded, definitely hurt. Verlander felt it. He knew it. He knew it was a mistake in terms of selection. That's just how it goes sometimes. That's the game of baseball, folks. Truly, I forget who it is, but baseball is a game of failure. All professional sports is. And it's really easy for me, podcasters, or for you, podcast listeners, to sit back and be critical, and for us to just drum up hate and anger towards these people for doing their jobs professionally. But at the end of the day, this is our team. These are the people that we believe in. So, here we try to give them we try to give them some love. So it's like JV, really did his best. It just wasn't his day. Taylor Scott came in. He got an inning pitched, gave up 1 hit and 2 strikeouts. And Caleb Ferguson comes in here for the stretch. He pitches 2 innings, gets 3 hits, gives up a run. One of them was earned, and gives up 3 strikeouts. So Ferguson finally gives up a run after a good run for himself, not giving up a run. But, he definitely can make me nervous at times. But I'm glad he was able to come in, eat a couple innings, and give the bullpen some rest in this tough blowout game. Somebody needs to hold the mop. Sean Dubin is no longer with the team. So, shout out to Caleb Ferguson for holding the mop there. The Astros offense, there isn't much to talk about, obviously getting shut out here, but it's kind of tough because it wasn't the worst offensive game, especially for how the Astros have been struggling with offense lately. I say that, but it just, the problem once again is runners in scoring position. Altuve was 2 for 4 with a strikeout. Breggy definitely going 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, and Yanner Diaz going 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. And getting those high strikeouts and offers in the middle of that lineup was a huge problem. Obviously, we just needed a long ball. We needed to hit with runners in scoring position, especially from the middle of the lineup there. So you're looking there, obviously I'm not burying Breggy or Yanner. They've both been so good. But when we're looking at this particular game, that's kind of where it lands. Ben Gamel was 1 for 3 in this game with a strikeout, and Myers and Dubon were both 1 for 3 in the game as well. The team got 6 hits overall, worked just 1 walk, struck out 8 times, which is fairly, admirable for how bad the offense was, but they were 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position, leaving 7 on base. The Astros just didn't have it in this game. Whether it was Verlander pitching or whether it was just the offense, they really tried to work some counts. It's tough because there are moments when you're watching this game and you just feel they were so close to turning this game around at multiple points. They just could never do it. They're in the middle of this big stretch against big teams. There is a little bit of weariness does set in, but it was just a tough one. After this game, immediately cousin Terry texted me. She was on the phone with me. I'm not gonna read it all to you. That's private text conversation, But I'm gonna kind of pull it up real quick. We were just talking about how tough the game was. Yeah, Cuz was just saying how it was hard to watch. It almost looked like a choreographed flop. Definitely a very painful game. And one of the points that I was making with Cuz is that, it's tough to see because in this situation with two very winnable games that they end up dropping, they have to salvage the third game now. And they just and having to salvage that game and going into a 4-game series versus the Kansas City Royals, putting the pressure on yourself to win more games. Because truly, while both of us are very happy that the Astros are at the top of the division, we don't want to depend on the Mariners and Rangers choking for us to, have a good run at the division title. We'll get back to. We'll talk more about that later in the divisional West Chase section. We also talked a little bit about Hayward, Cuz and I, but we'll get to that later. Let's go ahead and move on to Game 3 to keep this party rolling here, folks. There's so much to talk about in this podcast. In Game 3, which happened earlier today, as of the recording of this podcast, Altuve started off the game by stealing his 20th bag of the year, stealing home, while there was a pickoff attempt to first. Bryce Harper kind of wasn't paying that much attention. Jose Altuve was expecting it. Bryce Harper went for the tag, casually came back up to throw the ball back to the pitcher, but Altuve was going down the line and stole home plate, his 20th steal of the game. Astros went up 1-0, and the Spaghetti Man, started this game. He had a 1-2-3 first inning, and he looked dominant. From the first inning of this game, it really did look like the Astros were here to make a statement. They were not here to roll over. This statement game, this momentum game, they were not going to lay down. They were not going to punt. They were here to win. And you really love to see that mentality coming out the gate. The Astros need that kind of leadership. Obviously, we always talk about leadership, ever since Correa left, ever since, when Maldonado left, when these very boisterous, demonstrative leaders of the clubhouse leave, there's been a lot of talks of who's going to be a leader. And sometimes the leaders on the Astros specifically kind of lead by example. And that's not to say we don't need a fiery guy getting in people's chests as well. I'm just saying it was good to see Altuve and Spaghetti show up in this game. Spencer Arrighetti really did his best to play the role of a stopper and did amazing in this game to bring some fire to this team. Spencer Arrighetti took a shutout game into the 8th inning. It was absolutely incredible. Spencer Arrighetti went 7 2/3 of an inning, giving up 2 hits in total, 4 walks, and 11 strikeouts. He was so dominant. That no-hitter lasted into the bottom of the 8th. By that point, Shea Whitcomb was brought into the game for Alex Bregman. It was a sub in the previous inning. Shea Whitcomb misses a routine fielder's choice. I mean, I call it routine, obviously. That's debatable. But a fairly routine play to third. He just kind of missed it. JP3 was able to pick up the ball before it got into the outfield. It ended up dropping for a single. Giving the first hit away in the 8th inning, and then Trey Turner picked up another hit, and Spaghetti was lifted from the game. You could tell that Spencer really wanted to continue, but it was the right call with his pitch count going so high, and the Astros needing Spaghetti for the rest of the season. So then Brian King came in for Spaghetti, and once again Brian King coming in to battle Bryce Harper, this guy with a spring training photo as his stock picture, is being called in for Bryce Harper multiple times in a row. He gets Harper to softly pop up in this to end the inning. So you got to give a shout out to Brian King. Shout out to Joe Espada for trusting him. It was so amazing to see Spaghetti do so well in this game. Spencer Arrighetti has really changed his season, since the very beginning has been so awful for him and for pitchers like Hunter Brown. It's so good to see guys be able to turn it around and find some success, because the beginning of the season was so tough for fans. Just imagine how tough it must have been for those athletes that were grinding and really fighting to find success with what they know they can do right. We talked about the tone setting, the leadership and how great that was. The last two games were very high in effort, but low in results. And that's, why I wanted to touch base again about tone setting performances. And that's, these type of things are really huge for the Astros, and we're going to need more of it going forward, because not only does it help bolster the team, but when you get into your playoff run, you cannot be going on losing streaks. When you go on a bit of a losing streak, 2 games in a row is a losing streak. You got to stop the streak. And Altuve and Spencer Arrighetti both came in and set the tone. It's tough when I see people online, after a couple losses. Cuz and I, obviously, both of us were texting about the Astros for a while and complaining about them. But some people, they get online and they're saying that this team isn't giving a good effort, or the body language is terrible, and why don't they play for Joe Espada? Why there's no those type of people just get a big hush up from me, because it's a long season. Y'all been talking about body language and this team not giving effort all season long. But look where the Astros are. The top of the AL West. I know this isn't the strongest division, but this is the division that they have to win, and they're at the top right now. So while the last 2 games were tough, I don't think that nobody was giving up or not trying. It definitely felt like a flop, because the efforts, while they were giving strong efforts, the results weren't there. So I totally get that. But I'm just saying, I don't think anybody gave up on the game. You don't want to be panicking. You don't want to be panicking, whether you're a fan or a baseball player. So if we had a bunch of baseball players on the team that were just panicking all the time and being overly emotional about one game, it would be a long season. The season's long. It's a grind. They know what it takes to win. They're grinding and doing what it takes to win as best they can every day, and the results so far have been in the Astros' favor. So just don't stress about that stuff or body language stuff. We don't know what's going on. In the top of the 4th, the Astros really did get this game going. Up until then, it was pretty quiet, but Caratini hit a single, and Ben Gamel hits his first home run to right field. Oh no, oh wait, only it isn't a home run, and it's called back for fan interference, and is only a double. Caratini to third, Gamel to second, and Myers was up. Myers hits the ball down the line Myers hits a ball don't lie double is what I'm trying to say here to score Caratini and Gamel. The Astros were up 3-0. Dubon singles and scores Myers from second. Myers got home, making it 4-0. Altuve hit into a fielder's choice, eliminating Dubon, and then Jordan homered with Tuve on first, bringing the Astros up 6-0 in the 4th inning, really stepping on the necks of the Phillies in that game, in that inning, really extending that inning for their starting pitcher Walker. They kept Walker in because obviously they're in a stretch of runs, a run of games themselves. Everybody seems to have pitcher problems right now and health problems. So at that point, they decided they weren't going to pull Walker. He was just going to have to wear it and keep pitching to get to them to a point where they could bring in the bullpen later. So Walker had a tough game, but unfortunately for the Astros, they weren't able to capitalize on it too much. In the 7th inning, Jordan hit another homer, his 27th of the game. He almost got hit on the legs in the first pitch, but then was able to come back and hit a home run. After the Jordan homer, Bregman gets plunked in the head. Honestly, it was scary, but luckily he seemed okay. It didn't seem like there was anything bad that happened, but it was such a wild miss and went straight for his head. Even the crazy people in Philly were hushed and nobody said anything. And it was a wild, scary moment. We're very happy that Bregman is safe and nothing bad happened there. Definitely did not look intentional. No shenanigans or anything like that. Just a scary moment. Pena came up next to try to make him pay, but just got under a deep fly ball to left. But that ended. The inning ended without any more runs. The Astros. Yeah, with the Astros being up 7-0 after the Jordan homer. Mauricio Dubon got another big catch in this game in the bottom of the seventh to pick up spaghetti. It was a big, deep hit straight to center. Looked like it might have just hit the wall, might have just been shy of a home run, but he leapt up and caught it and got the big out, saving spaghetti at the time to keep that no-hitter going. In the top of the eighth, Chaz came in as a pinch hitter and hit a home run with Dubon on base. It was absolutely incredible. Chaz McCormick, we'll talk more about him in the roster movements section of the podcast. But Chaz McCormick definitely is a guy that we feel for on the podcast. The season has not gone as well for Chaz as he would have wanted it to, or as we here at the podcast would have wanted it to. At the beginning of the season, Chaz McCormick was even rated as a top 10 left fielder in the American League, and he's just kind of fallen off. Definitely, I think a change to his hitting approach. Something changed a bit there for Chazzy Fizz. And we'll get to where what we think could happen with him in a bit, but it's good to see him as a Philadelphia native go out there, get a big hit for the Houston Astros in front of his crowd. So then after Chaz hits the home run, Jordan goes back-to-back to put the Astros up with a home run of his own, his third home run of the game, putting the Astros up 10-0. That no-hitter obviously went into the bottom of the eighth when I said Shea Whitcomb came in. Chazzy Fizz pinch hit for Bregman. Shea Whitcomb came in defensively for Bregman. Gave up the hit. Obviously, just a tough play. Spaghetti didn't seem thrown off from it. Everything seemed fine. I think who knows what could have happened. You never know. But things happen in baseball. It's hard to be perfect, especially in a game of failure, like I was calling it earlier. You really gotta give it up for King, who came into this game. He pitched 1 1/3 of an inning, finishing up the game, giving up one hit. He did get a hit by pitch. He did hit a guy. That was a tough one for a guy that you see throw so many strikes. Something just got away from him, but he did get a strikeout to end the game. A call a little bit off the plate, but honestly, they used a position player in the ninth to pitch. They gave up earlier in the game when they left Walker in the fourth inning. So I understand people frustrated by a bad call by the umpire. Bad calls happen all the time, but that game seemed to be mailed in by the Philadelphia Phillies earlier in the game, and the Astros just stepped on their neck. It seemed like that game was decided in the fifth or sixth inning. But yeah, the umpire obviously did miss that last call. There's no debating that. But yeah, let's just kind of, the first thing I want to talk about here is Jordan. Jordan hit 3 home runs in this game today. Jordan is a feared hitter in this league. Not having him in that lineup for the time we had him in, I can't, like I said, splitting the series with Baltimore with limited power is incredible. Losing this tough series to the Phillies stinks, but it's good to have Jordan back. Jordan threatening, Jordan hitting 3 home runs in a game, putting the league on notice letting people know it might be time to walk Jordan. Other big names here in this series I wanted to talk about, obviously, are the new additions, Ben Gamel and Hector Neris. Ben Gamel went 10 for 23 on the road trip. What a nice addition. I think it's time for the Astros fans to take Dana Brown's name out of their mouths when being disrespectful. Brown has had a really good season, especially seeing that the Astros has had a season full of injuries. Brown keeps finding affordable solutions for the team to keep the Astros not only relevant, but on the cusp of another playoff run. And also shout out to Joe Espada for finding ways to win. It's hard to say, it's hard to say after a series loss, but they are finding ways to be competitive and to win. And Ben Gamel, new addition for the Houston Astros, who just seems like he's been here all season long. He knows how to work a count. He's putting up big hits. He's getting extra base hits. He's fielding a good right field. It's good to see that. Hector Neris obviously is back. It looks like he hasn't missed a single beat. He's Hector Neris. He might have some struggles. He might, give up a walk, make the situation a little tense every now and then. But that's why he's a setup guy. That's why you pitch him in situations that are tense, and he can get out of them. He's not exactly a closer the way the Chicago Cubs were using him, but out of all the guys, out of Neris, Stanek, and Phil Maton, all the three relievers that the Astros didn't sign at the end of last season, and fans have clamored for, Hector Neris would be the guy that I would want back. I'm glad he's back on the team. Also, shout out to Shea Whitcomb and Zach DeZenzo. Shea Whitcomb and Zach DeZenzo, the young Astros. While Shea had a tough defensive play, he also had a big hit, knocking in a couple of RBIs. Zach DeZenzo's having some big hits. I just think that, these guys were brought up to inject some offense and some momentum to the Astros. They did that. I think we'll have to see who the contributors are going to be for the Astros going forward. September, we're going to have another roster shakeup. We might bring up another arm. We don't know who the call-ups are going to be for September, so we're not really sure where these guys are going to fit in for the Astros for the rest of the season going forward. But it is nice that they contributed so well, that they have done their job of injecting some offense, of getting a little bit of some position players battling for their spots a little bit. It's good to see them. Zach DeZenzo never factored in as an outfielder, but maybe that's for the best. Ben Gamel being here definitely has made that not have to be an option. And speaking of outfielders, Jason Hayward, the veteran outfielder that recently was waived by the Los Angeles Dodgers, is looking to join the Houston Astros. Per sources, obviously not my sources, but Brian McTaggart, MLB, the media has sources saying that Jason Hayward is signing with the Houston Astros. That has not been confirmed by the club quite yet, but I'm sure that's going to be dropping probably as I'm even speaking right now. I think it's a good move. Jason Hayward is a good veteran, a good clubhouse type professional baseball player. He can obviously field his position. He's had a bit of a struggle offensively this year, but obviously, I think the Astros are looking for some key signings and some veteran guys going into a playoff push. I like the addition of Ben Gamel and Jason Hayward. It just kind of makes me nervous that maybe Kyle Tucker is not ready to join the team quite as soon as fans or general manager Dana Brown would want him to. So this is a safety net move for us to make sure that we have some positional depth in case Tucker is not quite ready. And the fact that Dana Brown is firing off on this move, I'm glad we have a safety net, but it makes me worry that maybe Tucker is only going to be back if we get to the playoffs, not for the remainder of the season. I have nothing to support that except fear and paranoia. And obviously, if Jason Hayward signs with the team, that's going to mean that there's going to be a need for space on the 40-man roster and obviously the active roster. And it pains me to say this, but I believe if we're adding Jason Hayward to the team, there is no other roster move that makes sense besides sending Chazzy Fizz down to AAA. I don't know. I think you could obviously you can send Shea Whitcomb or Zach DeZenzo down, but then that gives you some trouble with infield depth. That might mean that Mauricio Dubon plays a lot more infield than outfield. That is reality. I could see maybe. I could see maybe Shea Whitcomb going down because we need first baseman positionally. I'm not saying this because Shea did anything wrong. Shea, obviously, out of the two bats, Shea Whitcomb seems to be a little bit more of a more consistent bat out of the two, just off of an eye test for me right now. I'm not saying that based off of anything statistically that I know or some scouting report. I'm just saying if I'm just riding the hot bat, probably be Shea. But there's I'm looking at Zach DeZenzo. I'm looking at Chas McCormick. We're hoping, Chazzy Fizz was such a great contributor to the Astros in their World Series run. He's been such a great player. It'd be tough to see him, sit back down if he doesn't, but maybe that's what's needed. Moving forward from that bad news, Ryan Presley is looking to come back for the Royals series. So with him coming back, there's probably, we're probably going to have to make room for him, or we will have to make room for him on the roster. We'll have to see who that corresponding move is to send down. The bullpen is getting more and more competitive. I feel like the middle relief obviously has been strong all season, but with the addition of extra arms, with everybody getting healthy in the bullpen, Penn Murphy and Kendall Graveman are both listed as potential for September. But right now, I'm just like, well, who do you want to move for them? I mean, like Ferguson, but if you move Ferguson for Presley, then then who are you moving for Murphy or Graveman? The Astros right now are looking really strong with bullpen arms, and we're happy to see it. And hopefully, Presley comes back in traditional Presley form, and he can just come back and put some fire into this bullpen. I mean, think about it. We have Neris, we have Abreu, we have Presley, we have Hader. That is pretty solid. If we can get them all firing at all cylinders. Let's go ahead and look at the American League West race update real quick here, folks. The Houston Astros now have 71 wins and 62 losses. They're 3.5 games ahead of Seattle as of the recording of this podcast, who are 68 and 66, and they are 11.5 games ahead of Texas, who are 60 and 71. We have, as per Fangraphs, the Houston Astros have an 86.6% chance at the playoffs and an 8% chance at the World Series. That's higher than the Baltimore Orioles, folks. I have been telling you that this team has been good all season. I've been telling you not to worry about this team and not to panic about this team. But I've never quite said, well, this team is completely back and I don't worry about this team. These numbers on Fangraphs are projecting a team that you don't have to worry about. Obviously, losing a series to Philadelphia doesn't make you feel that way. But I'm just saying, while we might not be feeling the most bullish on the team, stats makers are saying this is a pretty solid team. So hopefully the Astros can continue this pace and win this division solidly and not have us sweat it out and get to the playoffs. Let's go ahead and move ahead to the Royals series here, folks. This is going to be a 4-game series against the Royals in Minute Maid. Hunter Brown is getting the start in the first game. Hunter Brown Diesel is 11-7 with a 3.72 ERA and a 25.5% strikeout rate. He's going up against Brady Singer, who's 9-9 with a 3.38 ERA and a 1.25 WHIP, 141 strikeouts in 146 and 2/3 innings pitched, and he's slightly lower than his career numbers there, Brady Singer. Game 2 will be Framber Valdez, who is 13-6 with a 3.27 ERA and a 24.2% strikeout rate, pitching against 34-year-old veteran Seth Lugo, who's 14-8 on the season, just gobbling up all the decisions. 3.19 ERA and a 1.12 WHIP with 146 strikeouts and 172 innings pitched. Lugo is a vet pitcher. He's looking to, he's having a good vet season there. He's in Game 3. We're moving on to Game 3. Yusei Kikuchi is pitching 6-9 this season with a 4.39 ERA and a 26% strikeout rate. Highest on the pitching staff going up against the Royals, at least. He's pitching against Cole Reagans, not Reagan from the Olympics. That'd be a different matchup. Cole Reagans is 10-8 with a 3.28 ERA. This 26-year-old left-hander is hopefully somebody that the righties on the Astros can do some damage against. And Game 4 is going to be a Ronald Blanco game, who's 9-6 with a 3.14 ERA and a 24.3 strikeout rate versus TBD for the Kansas City Royals. TBD, I have no scouting report on. Just like cash considerations, I never have a scouting report on either one of those two players. After that, it's going to be a Reds at the Reds and then a homestand for your Houston Astros. And folks, it's time for a bonus, Jonas. We're going to go ahead and talk some football before we wrap up the podcast today. The Houston Texans are lighting Houston aflame with desire, I should say. Really everybody in Houston is talking about the Texans. Everybody's excited about the season. So since we have some interested parties, I thought I would go ahead and talk some Texans football as we wrap up the podcast. They just made their 53-man roster cut. So we're just going to kind of talk through the roster. Don't worry, I'm not going to have notes on every single man on the 53-man roster. But we'll kind of go through it here. We have just 2 quarterbacks on the roster, with the team focused on receivers and running backs, specifically on offense. There will be some positions that are a little light. Case Keenum had a foot injury that he sustained versus the Rams in the preseason game, and he's going to be out for months. So the Houston Texans put him on the IL list for the season, and Case Keenum misses the roster cut, and sadly, that might be it for Case Keenum as a Houston Texan, or at least in a Texans jersey. I think the team is hopeful that he sticks around with the team as he's rehabbing his injury and kind of becomes a coach, so that maybe he can become a coach for the team in the future. But Case Keenum, he's one of those Houston legends, a UH hero from when I was back at University of Houston, not to age me, and cementing his H-Town legacy last season, stepping in for C.J. Stroud for 2 games. It's a bummer, but that's how it goes with athletes. Sometimes injuries are just part of the game, and they're never at a good point in time. So we're definitely hoping Case gets better soon, and we're hoping that he has a path for success with the Houston Texans as a coach. Tim Boyle was released as well, and maybe the team would like to sign him for the practice squad, but they're running with just 2 QBs out there. However, they do have 5 running backs. Joe Mixon with Damian Pierce and Cam Akers likely fighting for second string there, with Dare Ungubawale. Oof. I was worried. I love saying Ungubawale, but as many of you know, I have trouble pronouncing names sometimes, so definitely I apologize for anybody that I'm disrespectful to. I wrote out the pronunciation guides. I tried to study it, but there's a lot of names I'm going through today. But Dare Ungubawale is one of my favorite running backs and running back names to say. He made the roster along with British Brooks. There's no proper fullbacks on this team. But British Brooks, who has the name of seems like he's a Guy Ritchie character in one of those movies. He can find some time as at the position in fullback. He's been doing some reps. There's film of him doing some blocking practice. Obviously, Andrew Beck and Troy Hairston cut. The two proper fullbacks didn't make the squad. Cade Stover and Brevin Jordan made the team as tight ends, and they are also multi-use players that could factor into some play sets in the fullback position as well. As long as the starting tight end Dalton Schultz, who fills out the 3 tight end list there. The receivers were deep with the Houston Texans. Having a huge wealth of receivers means that there were going to be some receiver cuts. The Texans went with 7 receivers in the long list, though, with Stephon Diggs, Robert Woods, Tank Dell, John Mechie III, Nico Collins, Xavier Hutchinson, and Steven Sims, who is a special teams returner and one of the young talented receivers of your Houston Texans. Noah Brown, who was a significant contributor to the team last season, is reportedly signing with the Commanders after being cut, and Ben Skowronek was also cut as well. Lots of fun names on the Houston Texans, but sadly, Skowronek is no longer one of my favorite fun names. Is no longer with us. The 10 players that got picked for the O-line are Kendrick Green, Jarrett Patterson, Blake Fisher, Nick Broker, Shaq Mason, Juice Scruggs, Titus Howard, Kenyon Green, and Laramie Tunsil. Titus Howard is able to play both guard and tackle, having some versatility there for your Houston Texans. Moving on to the other side of the ball, we're looking at the D-line here with Will Anderson Jr., Jerry Hughes, Danielle, no, that's not it. I know it's not it. Hunter, Danae Hunter. Yep. Folorunsu Fatakasi, Khalil Davis, Derek Barnett, Mario Edwards Jr., Tim Settle Jr. Being your defensive line there. Ooh, that was a tough one for me, folks. But Will Anderson is expected to be back for the Colts game. He had 45 tackles, 7 sacks, and 11 tackles for loss last year, winning the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, has come back with 15 pounds of muscle, which sounds absolutely scary. So Will Anderson Jr. hopefully will be back for that opening game for the Texans and bringing some pressure from that D-line. Now we have the linebackers who also have an injury that they sustained here. The linebackers on the roster are Aziz Al-Shaair, Delshon Phillips, Jake Hansen, Henry Toto, Neville Hewitt, Jamal Hugh. Goodness, now I'm just missing easy ones. Jamal Hill, Christian Harris didn't make the squad because he was placed on IR. He is still on the team, obviously. He just didn't make the 53-man roster due to injury. He has a calf injury and is designated to return, but it's definitely not what fans were hoping for. But, a lot of people are not stressing out because our coach is D'Amico Ryans. He's obviously a great linebacker. He's going to get his linebacker squad coached up, and they're going to be dominant. But, Christian Harris had a career-high 101 tackles last season. He will be missed until he's back with the team, but we're glad that he is designated to return. Moving on to the defensive backs real quick, we have Jalen Petrie, Jeff Okuda, Kamari Lassiter, Chris Boyd, Jimmy Ward, Eric Murray, Derek Stingley Jr., MJ Stewart, Miles Bryant, and Caleb Bullock. I just realized I should have been reading all of these names like Saturday Night Live intros. I missed the mark. We could have had a good time, and I just now realized it. We'll do it for the special teamers because they deserve it. But we're looking at the defensive backs here. This is looking to be Derek Stingley Jr.'s coronation year, with many pundits claiming that this is an all-pro breakout year for the young corner. Injuries have plagued him in the past, but if he can shake off the injury bug and have a healthy season, it's projected to be a great year for him and the Houston Texans defense. So we're hoping that Stingley Jr. can have an amazing season, and we'll see how much money we'll have to pay for an all-pro cornerback going forward. But, I really do think, he has the talent. If he can just remain healthy, it's going to be a great year for him. and I'm not the one saying it. These are the pundits. These are the experts saying it, and I'm just co-signing off on that. And now to get to the special teams with special guest Dan Pardo, Tommy Townsend, Cammy Fairbairn, and John Weeks. So John Weeks obviously being the long snapper there. John Weeks is an amazing long snapper. So obviously, taking up that spot on the roster is very important if you're that good at your job. Tommy Townsend doing the punty, Fairbairn doing the kicking. It has been a long podcast, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up for today, folks. Thank you so much for listening to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. We really do appreciate you. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share, all of those things, all of those keywords. Please smash all the buttons and share with all the friends. Give us a 5-star rating. Share with other Houston Astros and Houston Texans diehard fans that you know need some love, need some good news, and need some positive vibes in this world. Share this with them. If you've made it to this part of the podcast, you must like it. Give me that 5-star review, pretty please. It really does help. And if you would be so kind, go check out the Substack. That's at spacecadetsports.substack.com, where you can get every post, every article, every meme dump, every podcast, and the occasional video podcast emailed to you directly for free. All you have to do is put your email address into that field and you get it for free. Or if you're like me and you like a mobile app and the iPad experience a whole lot more, download the Substack app. Search Space Cadet Sports. You see that orange astronaut that pops up there? That's us. Subscribe to us. You get click that button that says you want notifications instead of emails. You don't get the email experience. You get everything popped up as a notification. Every article, every meme dump, every podcast. And I love that experience. Definitely check that out. If you have any any ideas as who you think is going to be the roster moves that are made for the Houston Astros, or if you have any ideas for roster moves for the Houston Texans as they're figuring things out here, there could be some late additions to the roster. You never know. Reach out to me on social media and let me know who those additions or subtractions might be. Let me know what you're thinking. I obviously want to talk Houston Astros, and Houston Texans, you could let me know on social media at Paul Salazar JR and all social media platforms. I'm active at least on all the cool ones. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I appreciate it so much. Remember to be the best you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Astros.